later today. You can check your email, check my social media, and you should find that information. So we're going to be talking about a few different use cases of AI in Excel. I call it Beyond the Basics because we're going to get a little beyond flash fill and some of the basic use cases that work really well with Copilot in Excel. I don't know how many of you have used Copilot in Excel, but some of the use cases are real basic, okay, creating like basic summary tables and visuals and things like that. We want to take it up a notch, and I also want to show you some of the things that we can do in Excel with AI that have nothing to do with Copilot that in some cases have been around in Excel for a few years here. So those of you who don't know me, my name is George Mount. I'm a Microsoft Excel MVP, data analytics trainer, author, and consultant. Got courses on LinkedIn Learning, among other places. And this is what I do for a living, help people get the most out of Excel for analytics, and do these free webinars just as a way to give back, to practice my material, and get the word out about my services. So with all that in mind, I'm going to copy a link here in the chat. Let me turn on the slides first here. Okay, so just so we all know what we're doing today. Actually, let me share the link first. Okay. This is going to go in the chat now. Those of you who have been at these before, and I think a lot of you have, will know that I probably kind of bombard you with this chat for the downloads because people come in late at different times. Set to go for about an hour, give or take. Might be a little less. But when people come in late, they don't see the link to the downloads. So if you see somebody asking, how do I get the downloads? You can just refer them to what I just put in the chat. And I just kind of out of instinct copy and paste it twice. What you should be able to do is just click the link to that. Okay. Download that folder. It should just show up directly like in your downloads folder. Okay. And we're going to extract everything. And okay, you should make sure you do this part, make sure you extract it. Otherwise, there might be some issues. So I see people coming in again already. So I am going to start my copy paste OCD. You are welcome to share it if somebody else sees it before me. And all I'm going to have you do is just take a second here to download that. Give me a like or a thumbs up or something, just so I know that you've got it. Okay, I already see one thumbs up, so thanks. Appreciate that. Okay, I see a couple more. All right, so I'll give everybody a second here to get that on their computers. And if there are any questions, just let me know. Chat's the best way to get my attention. I have the mic and the PC. I'm sorry, the mic and the cameras turned off just for safekeeping. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to assume everybody's good there. So we can crack open the slides and continue. All right, so the way this is going to work, we've got a few use cases here. I've got some resources right here. The solutions to these are over here. So, hopefully between the download, the resources, and the solution file, you've got plenty of ammo for yourself. And let me go ahead and open up the slide deck just to get us on the same page about what our objectives are. Okay, and then we will dive into these demos. All right. PowerPoint seems a little pokey, so just give it some time. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. No. Spoke too soon. Okay. AI-powered Excel, beyond the basics. We're going to talk about column from example and Power Query. We're going to look at formula by example. This is actually done in Excel Online. So these are two different ways to take flash fill, which is probably something you're familiar with, and scale it a little bit and make it repeatable and auditable. So we're going to talk about what that means. We're going to look at fuzzy matching, which is a really useful technique when you've got data that is kind of similar, but not perfectly similar, and you want to do a lookup type mechanism on that. We're going to look at building basic forecasts, and we're going to look at importing data live from the web with linked data types. So all of these involve AI in one way or another, and we are going to start with Power Query's column by example. Okay, so the nice thing about column by example is we are going to use Power Query. The rules are going to be explicitly defined and then easily reused. We're just going to type in some examples that we want. This is really similar to flash fill, if you ever used that before. But the issue with flash fill is that you aren't given an explicit formula that if you have new data, you can't apply those same rules to the new data. So what we can do with column by example is it still gives us that kind of tactile visual approach to just typing in what we want, and then it's solved on the back end. But we actually get a set of rules that we can follow for later and apply to new data sets. So I'm going to go ahead and head over to this column by example worksheet here. Okay, and let me move my pages around. I see there's some people coming in now, so let me just copy and paste that download file again. Okay, and okay, so we're going to open that. Okay, there we go. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to use Power Query. Now, I use Power Query a lot in these workshops. I've done past examples of Power Query. Okay, so you can check my book or whatever you want to do to get up to speed if you're not familiar with it. But we're going to go ahead and just dive right in here and head to data and from table/range. So I have these companies, and my basic goal is I just want to kind of regroup these a little bit. Let's say I want to rename technology to tech, and I'll even do it right here. Tech. Flashfill may or may not kick on here. So Flashfill is going to kick on, right? You'll notice that as I typed in tech and consumer, okay, it comes and goes, so it's still trying to develop those rules. But let's say that I even did get these rules set up in Power Query, I'm sorry, in Excel. We're not going to have any formula, right? So these are basically hard-coded in. So whatever kind of regrouping or rewording for industry that we put in here, we can't, if there's new data, we can't easily apply that to the new data. So we want to use Power Query instead to explicitly define those rules for the new column. So now we're going to go to data from table/range. We'll head into Power Query here. Okay, and we've got our editor open. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do is head to add column. There's going to be a column from example. So this example column is right here. Let me get rid of some of these data profiling columns or features. Okay, let's go back here to add column and a column from example right here. We're going to base it on this, right? So this is the basis. You know, if we were going to do a flash fill or even write our own series of if statements, which is basically what's going to happen, we would use this as our basis, right? Company name isn't a part of it, so just select industry. And now let's go to from selection. Okay, so over here toward the right, and I just did a control shift and plus and a control shift and minus if you want to resize your screen there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, it says enter simple values to create a new column. So I'm going to do just what it's asking for me to do. Let's put tech for technology. And you're going to see, just like flash fill, it's going to start to come up with some educated guesses. They may or may not be right off the bat. So often, if this is the case, just feed it more data, feed it more examples, and hopefully it will converge to what you want. Every so often, it just can't quite catch the examples. If that happens, you're just going to see a bunch of nulls, okay, in your column here. So once you start typing a bunch of stuff, you know, for example, if I were to just type like XYZ or something like that, right? So you're seeing these nulls. That's a good sign that Power Query is kind of not really sure what you're trying to accomplish there. So let's go back here and let's call this healthcare. Okay, and you'll see, okay, yes, all these are filled in with an educated guess. They're looking pretty good. Okay, the last one I want to do is this, just change consumer staples to consumer. So we're just going to kind of get rid of that subgrouping and rename both of these consumer. And these all look good to me, right? So industrials is fine, tech is fine, consumer, and so forth. Okay, so that's looking pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now we have our new column. Okay, we can rename it if we wanted to. Call it, I don't know, industry recode or something like that. And then the beauty with Power Query is a couple things. First of all, we can remove this industry column if we don't want to see it anymore. Let's just delete it. So just click on this column and hit delete, and it's gone. That didn't break any formula. So we have formulas here that are driving everything, and we'll look at what formula Power Query created for us in a second. But we can delete kind of our source column, right, that drives that calculation. And we're not going to get a bunch of NA or ref errors or anything like that you usually would in Excel if you deleted the source for a calculation. So that's really cool. Okay. We do have a calculated column that was created. So this was our column from example. So if you go into your applied steps again with Power Query, every step being auditable, every step you can follow. Okay, we can go into this gear wheel here. Let's click on that gear wheel. All right, and this is actually the formula that Power Query created for us based on the rules that we made. It basically reversed engineered a series of if-then statements. That happens to work for us, right? So if it's technology, recoded as tech. If it's discretionary, it's consumer. Consumer staples is consumer. Those are actually all the rules that we applied there. So we didn't have to write that big nested if statement for ourselves, but it was applied to the data. And where things get really nice is, let's go ahead and actually close and load this back into Excel here. I'm going to close and load. Okay, so I'm going to add this to a table. We don't need it in the data model. Let's make it a new worksheet. Okay, so this is kind of the like after, right? So I'll just call this after. Okay, and I will call this before. Okay, so if we wanted to add another company in here, it looks like Apple, Microsoft are already in there, but I'm gonna go ahead and put Apple again. Let's say we didn't know that it was in there already. We'll put technology there. Okay, so this is our new row. Now we want this recoded as tech. Okay. If we had flash fill, it's kind of one and done. So we can't easily reapply these rules again. Okay. But the nice thing here with Power Query is that everything's auditable. We've got a script. We can rerun that script. So all I need to do is just refresh that. Okay. And that gets sent through the query, just like all the other data. And since it is technology, it gets changed to tech, right? If I had another consumer staples in here, okay, uh, refresh that, okay, and that gets recoded. So we have a working set of formulas on the back end in Power Query that we were able to create, just through giving Power Query some examples. So pretty cool use of AI in Excel outside of our typical flash fill copilot type use cases. Let me check the chat here. Okay, it looks like maybe some people came and went, but just to kind of reset the room here, I'm going to go ahead and just put the downloads in the chat again. Any questions about that particular example here? Okay. So I'll give everybody a second to think about that. While you're thinking about that, we are gonna breeze on into Excel Online briefly. So if you have it, this is a time to kind of get it on your screen. I'm gonna do the same with you because this feature only works on Excel Online. Actually, I feel like sometimes it works on the desktop, but it's inconsistent. So let me show you what I mean here. So that was column from example. We're going to do something similar here in Excel Online. The only difference is that uh, it is going to be, actually, you know what I could probably do? Let me send you this link in the chat so you can kind of just like share this workbook with me. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay, and I'll share my screen in a second here. I'm going to put it as view only. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ronnie. Okay. Formula by example. All right. So I just put a workbook in the chat. All right. So if you want to open that and follow along, you've got this workbook in your resources. This feature really only works online. Okay. So that's why we had to do it this way. This is Formula by example. So the nice thing with this one is it's kind of like a combination of flash fill with column by example and Power Query. So Power Query is really nice, but the issue is that it is not the most user-friendly tool. It does take a step to refresh it. You have to kind of know what you're doing. It's a little bit hidden of a feature. Okay, what if we wanted to just actually explicitly, set up some rules here, write a formula, give some examples, and then get that formula written for us. So for example, if I wanted to combine city and state, well, yeah, I'm sure a lot of us would know how to do concatenate, okay? And we could probably write that ourselves. But the nice thing here is if I just start typing, it should work here. Sometimes it gives us, there we go. Fill cells with formula. Okay. So Copilot, this is a Copilot feature. It used to be kind of a standalone, but it's been rolled into Copilot as a feature here. Copilot suggests a formula might be helpful. There's our formula. Okay, it will concatenate that. Okay, so now it's kind of the best of both worlds here, where, if I just kind of add where I went to college. Okay, so if we have some new data, we can see the formula. We don't have flash fill anymore. We don't have Power Query anymore. We're actually just able to provide a couple of examples and get the results back. So almost the best of both worlds scenario between flash fill and column by example. One more example here. I've got the dates. Okay, that kind of sized weird. Okay, maybe I just want the month. There's a function that would do this. I forgot what it is. Okay, so let's just go ahead and same idea, right? Apply that, and we can use the text function, get it done for us. And of course, if we were to add today's date, which I think you could do, yeah, with control and semicolon in Excel, your keyboard shortcut for the day, control and semicolon will actually insert today's date into your worksheet. And that formula gets automatically filled down, gives us the month right there. So cool little feature. Like I said, generally only works in Excel online. I feel like I've gotten it to work on the desktop before, but inconsistent. Okay, so that's more of an Excel online type feature right there. All right, so you could play around with that one. You've got that workbook, and you could check that out. Any other questions? I know that was kind of a short one. Everybody doing good there? Okay, I see a couple things coming through the chat. Okay, cool. I see some thumbs up. Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna pass trying to show you on the desktop version. It would be the same procedures, so I just think for the sake of time, I'm gonna pass on that. Okay, let's move on to one that is definitely gonna work on the desktop version, which is fuzzy matching. Okay, so the idea here is that, when you've got two data sets that you don't have a really clean primary key to go into database language, how can you try to combine those data sets without, an explicit lookup column? Okay, we're going to join items based on approximate match. So we're going to get into the land of probabilities and AI here. Okay, so I've got two data sets. All right. And so we've got customers. Okay, we've got transactions. Now, for whatever reason, we don't have a customer ID explicitly associated with each customer. So the ideal way to do this would be, what customer made what purchase. We would have like a customer ID right here, and we could easily look that in. But we don't have that. But we do have customer names. Okay, so this is a really, really simple example. This is like a big thing in marketing, unfortunately, for better or worse, all the stuff that you have, your purchases and your credit cards and this and that, there's often not a, easy way to combine all those data sources. So marketing companies often do this, right, where they use these probabilistic models to think that, I think that the person that made this purchase is the same person that lives at this house and has this internet provider and all that. So get into a little bit of the dark arts here of data, but for something like this, I think we're within our ethical limits here. Okay, so let's go ahead, and this is another Power Query thing. All right, I think I've read these into Power Query already. This is the fuzzy matching example. Let's go to queries and connections. Okay, so yeah, these are both read into Power Query already. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, click data, queries, and connections. Let's right click on transactions. Okay. And all right, so we've got our data here. And again, we want to do a lookup. And what I want to do is look up the transactions. Actually, let's go this way. Okay, so I've got my customer name. I want to get a little bit more information about what customer uh, made that transaction. Okay, so let's go to, I'm going to click on transactions. I'm going to go to merge queries. Okay, I'm going to merge queries as new. I'm going to merge queries as new just so we get a third query that combines the two of them. That way these two data sources kind of remain intact. You know, it's kind of 601, but I think it's easier just to like understand what's happening to merge queries as new. And then, you know, once you understand what you're doing and you have things set up, you don't necessarily need the third query here, but just for the sake of educational purposes, let's merge queries as new. And again, I selected transactions, went to merge queries. I went to merge queries as new. All right. And let's do customers. Okay, so the idea here is that I want to look up the customers that purchased each transaction. Okay, I don't have like a great ID column here. I do have customer names, which look pretty similar. Okay, so you'll see there's like John Doe, there's J Smith, one has a period, one doesn't. So this gets into the similarity and how similar should these matches be. So there are a lot of statistical probabilities that are being used here, but the button that we need to click here is this join kind. It says use fuzzy matching. Okay, so what's going to happen here is that we are going to try to find things that are maybe not identical, but similar enough that it passes the threshold to be considered a match here. Now, there are some things that you can actually tweak down here, fuzzy matching options. There's a similarity threshold. This is going to say, how similar do they actually need to be considered a match? A one would be they actually have to be exact matches. So if you're setting it to one, you're basically just doing a regular lookup. Okay. A zero will cause all values with any level of similarity to match each other. So it's almost like doing a full outer join or something, right? You're getting all the combinations. So if you think about it, right, we've got a spectrum here. Match everything and or match just one thing or match nothing almost. Okay. So I'm going to just go ahead and leave it as the default. The default is 0.8. You know, there's a bunch of math behind this. We don't need to get into that. Match by combining text parts. Okay. Maximum number of matches. I'm going to set this to 1. The idea here is that a Power Query thinks that maybe there are two people that might have made that transaction, it might give you both of them. So it can't make up its mind. It's going to give you 2 or 3 or whatever. I'm just going to set it to 1 so that we always have just one person per transaction or one customer per transaction. All right. Transformation table, I think what this does, yeah, if you wanted to map specific values during that matching process, so explicitly say that like always associate Microsoft with MSFT if you're working with stocks or something like that. So I'm hitting these little buttons here. Okay. But this is, you know, just a basic example here. I've got customers. I want to find to the best of my ability, what customer made what transaction is basically what I'm trying to do here. Okay. So let's go ahead and click OK. All right, so this is a merge, and that means that we will want to expand out the columns from the result of that merge. So we get this little like accordion button here as a result. I'm going to go ahead and just click OK on all of them just to see what we're working with. We can always pare it back later. Okay, so let me make this a little smaller actually so we can see everything. So basically what we just did here is we matched, right, these transactions to these customers. So it looks like, you know, Power Query assumed that J Smith was the same as J Smith with a period. Okay, Jack Johnson. Most of these look pretty similar. J Smith with an E was matched to J Smith without an E. J Smithers couldn't really find a match for it. It looks like there was a match for J Smithers, J-A-Y, but J Smithers. Now, is Jay Smithers, are these guys the same guy? Maybe, right? We're just kind of dealing with uncertainties and probabilities here. So, uh, again, not going to be perfect, but you know, when you have the data that you have, this can be definitely a useful tool for you. Question is, merge columns the only way to use fuzzy matching? You might be able to do it with Python and Excel. Now that Python's in Excel, not positive about that. That's the only way I could think of doing it. If there are alternatives, then you are welcome to check those out. But this is the way that I know how. So, um, any other questions with fuzzy matching here? Cool. All right, I see one thumbs up. Everybody else doing good here. Got a couple more examples. Okay, I'm going to close out of this and just kind of get set up for our next one here. Solutions are all in the solution files, so don't panic too much when you see me not saving. All right, let me go back to the deck here. All right. So I see some stuff going on in the chat. You can go ahead and keep typing. I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on just for the sake of time. Probably get you out a little early today. Forecast sheet. All right. So this is it is what it sounds like. Probably the easiest way to automatically forecast your data in Excel. It's not exactly AI because you're going to see that we are going to generate formulas. This is going to use a common forecasting technique. And we can just use our buttons and drag and drop and use the interface to build a basic data forecast. So let's go ahead and open up forecast sheet here. Okay. And let me see what's going on in the chat. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, people are terrified with Power Query, then they're going to be really terrified by what's probably coming next with Excel. So good for everybody here not being terrified with Power Query. And we will look at forecast sheet now. This one does not use Power Query. Okay, so let's go ahead. We've got our data here. I've got, these are housing starts. This is US housing data from the Federal Reserve Bank. What I'm going to do is let's head to data. So what I want to do is actually forecast housing starts. Looks like this data is a little old now, but that's fine. Data, let's go over to forecast sheet, all the way over here at the right near what if analysis. Okay. All right. So we've got a forecast here. Okay. We do have some customization options here. The first one is the appearance. Do you want a line chart or do you want a bar chart? If you're just looking at trends over time, probably a line chart is better. If you're really, really concerned about individual values in the data, sometimes a bar chart makes those individual values a little bit easier to see. But we're probably more concerned, with the overall pattern here. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one. There are some options down here. Okay. So it's asking us when do we want our forecast to start? Okay. When do we want our forecast to end? Now this is 2012 uh, from starting at 2022. So if I wanted to change that, I could. I'm going to go ahead and use the last 3 years of data. Maybe we'd want to do more a full economic cycle and actually include the COVID years and so forth. So just because the computer's doing something doesn't necessarily mean it's right. We might want to adjust, check out the forecast. And since we do have the data after the fact here, since this is older data, would be easy enough to validate and see what kind of forecast, how much data works best here with this. Okay, seasonality, we'll go ahead and detect that automatically. Where's our data? If there are any missing points, right? Should those missing points be interpolated? Should we try to make up a value for those missing numbers? Or should we actually forecast them as zeros? Okay. Aggregate duplicates. So we don't have any duplicates in here, but if you were looking at like sales data where there are a lot of transactions every day, you'd want to probably change that to a sum, right? In case, unless you actually are looking at, average transaction value or average wait time on hold or something like that. Maybe an average would be a better case in that example. But a lot of different examples down here, okay, or customization options. I'm going to go ahead and just leave everything here as is. All right. And let's go ahead and I'll click insert the forecast statistics here. Okay. So let's go ahead and click create. And we actually are going to get just a big Excel table. You'll see that this is our data. This is the forecast. So there are, maybe you've seen these formulas in Excel before. There's the forecast ETS. So this is actually called exponential triple smoothing. Just one forecast type that Excel tends to use a lot. There's some pros and cons of it. We're not going to get into that today. That's what I do consulting for. And we've got the chart here with our forecast. Okay. We've got confidence intervals. So if you crack the books from your school stats class, you can check that out. But basically what we just did here is create a forecast, just using this menu and get a nice visual back, getting an estimate about what housing prices might be. Again, I'm sorry, housing starts with that 95% confidence interval. So nice little example. Like I said, probably the easiest way to create a forecast in Excel, right? Like all forecasts, they're not going to be perfect. But for a lot of business use cases, this is a good start, right? It's all about just start. You got to start somewhere. If you want to start a forecast, it's good to not get wrapped up in your head too much, and see how this works. We've got some old data. We can take it from there. And this really didn't take a lot of effort. Very feasible start point to build a forecast. All right. Any questions about that one? We've got one more example with linked data types, which I hope you'll love. It's definitely one of my favorites in Excel. And that'll be it for today. Yes, I love Power Query too as well, Ronnie. It's been around for like 15 years now. It's still new to a lot of people. It'll be interesting to see where things go with Power Query and Excel in general here. All right. I didn't see anything. Maybe everybody's just ready to pack it up here. But before you do that, one more example here with linked data types. All right. Now, what linked data types do are allow you to connect to online data sources to retrieve related data about some entity. What I love about linked data types is that it avoids a lot of the time and error of having to manually look up things. By default, there are stock currency and geography linked data types. You can actually create your own. That takes a little bit of effort. You actually need to use Power BI to do that, and then you can refer back to them in Excel. So we're just going to use the default linked data types that come out of the box in Excel. All right, so we'll see how this works. Let me go over to linked data types here. Okay, so I've got some countries. All right, we may have some people hailing from these fair countries. You may be hurt already that I have a typo. All right, now if that's the case, let's have Excel do its magic here. So I'm going to select these countries. I'm going to go to data. Okay. And right here under data type, there are these linked data types. All right. So I'm going to select the last one here, which is geography. Okay. So these are all geographic entities. Let's go ahead. We'll select all of them. Okay. And let's go to geography. And this is where the AI comes in. So not only was Excel able to fix that typo for us, but it actually changed the data type of these cells. And we are now able to tap into what is essentially like a knowledge graph, if you've ever heard of that term. Right? So we've got all these attributes and entities that are related to a country. We are now able to pull those in dynamically from the web with linked data types. So for example, if I were to click on the little card here, you'll actually get a little bit of information. So imagine how cool this would be, like, if you had maybe stock products, SKUs, or employees or departments or something like that, and you could get like a little tooltip at a glance telling you a little bit of information, right? How big is this product? How many units did it sold last week? Stuff like that. Okay, did it sell? Sorry, get excited. My grammar goes to pot sometimes. Okay, but you'll see here we get the same information. Now this is actually coming in from Bing. You can set this up internally so the stuff pulls in from like a CSV file or a structured data source. But by default, these data types that come with Excel, these are all coming in off the web. Okay, so that's really cool. And what we can actually do now is add these to our table. Okay, so if I wanted to have maybe the capital of each of these countries, I don't see it here. I know it's there somewhere. Capital, there it is right there. Major city. Okay, so those popped in, right? And these are actually linked data types themselves. So you can even learn a little bit more about the capitals, which is pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and go back here. And where things get really interesting are how we can actually add images in here as well. Now, for some reason, with these geographic entities, the flags are just coded in here as image. I don't know why that hasn't been fixed, but there it is. We could always go ahead and just call that a flag. So these are images that are actually inside of the cell. So again, you could do this, set something up where you've got like product SKUs or something, have like a little image of that product directly in your table. So it can be really cool for, setting up interactive reports or catalogs or things like that. And you'll see that we've got a different notation here where we've got, these are our linked data types in the country column. Okay, we're using this period marker to indicate that this is some kind of attribute that's related to that specific geographic entity. So definitely cool stuff. Works with companies as well. Now, this is only going to give us current data. So if you wanted to find like, the last 52 weeks of closing prices or something for these companies, you're not going to be able to do that. It's just going to give us whatever the latest and greatest data points are. But if I come over here to companies, got a few here, I'm going to go ahead and let's make a stocks here. Okay. Now, sometimes Excel is not exactly sure which match to make, okay? In this case, I have Ford, and it looks like it has some different ideas for us on what might be the right stock there. Okay, let's confirm that we do want Ford Motor on the stock exchange as F, okay? So that's the ticker, all right? And now, again, we can do the same here with these entities. The number of employees, we got that right there. Okay. Some of these other ones, like the ticker symbol's there, but some of these other ones are really only like the last known value, right? So like the 52-week high or the low, things like that are going to be as of whatever time it was updated. So I think if you wanted to know that, you could probably go to last trade time. And I think that would basically be a proxy for when this was last updated. Could be wrong on that. But again, this is just, whatever the latest data is in Bing. I think it would be if I hit the column here. Okay, so this is actually coming from another website, Refinitiv, which I'm not familiar with. But anyway, pretty cool stuff. A lot of things you could do with this. And again, you can make internal linked data types. It takes a little bit of elbow grease, so we're not going to get to today. That's what I did consulting for. And that is our last example, actually. So let me see if there are any questions here. Okay. Yeah, Power Query, Alicia, yes, it makes life a lot easier. Can link data types go down to town city level? Yeah, in general, it's pretty smart. So, if you just put your hometown, it should be able to find that. Right. So it found, a suburb of Cleveland, easy enough. If you wanted like a hierarchy, you would have to think about what is this a hierarchy of. So I don't think there's a way to say like list all of the suburbs of Cleveland or something like that. You might be able to like use Copilot to get that list and then convert that list to linked data type. So you just have to think about like how do those relationships actually get mapped, right? What's the right tool for generating those relationships and listing those entities? But then in general, once you, type something in, even like the smallest little town, it's probably going to be able to find that. So anyway, all right. So that's everything I got today. Thanks again so much for tuning in. Before I totally log off here, just the usual things here. If you haven't been to these before, I don't ask for a tip. I don't ask for, I don't have a Venmo link that I share. I do them for free. Unfortunately, I can't teach Excel for free full time. So I do ask for your feedback if you could share just a little bit about how I did today, what you liked, what you'd like to see different. Okay. If you fill out that link, I am going to send you a modern Excel toolkit, like a little PDF, just to get you started with all these tools that we've been talking about using modern Excel. So if you could kindly fill that out, that would really, really help me out a lot. I'm always looking for more data on how I'm doing and also data that I can share with potential customers. Okay. The feedback is also right here. Okay. That's not the feedback, sorry. The feedback I posted already. These are the upcoming events. So as you'll see, there are a bunch of them coming. Okay. We're going to be talking about all facets of modern Excel, even a little bit of Power BI. Vast majority of these are going to be recorded, not all of them. I try to spell that out. This one next week, I don't think I'm recording, but I'll probably do a recorded version. Sometimes I just want to like test out material before I put it on live on the internet as a recording, as it were. So that's what that's about. And I can't think of anything else. So the recording, I'm going to stop recording in a second. That's going to go out in an email with all this information. And thanks again for tuning in. Hopefully this was a good session. And let me know, if I can help you in any way with Excel and what you're working on with your analytics initiative. So thanks so much for tuning in again. Appreciate it. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Abdullah Rahman. Probably said that wrong. Sorry. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Alicia. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in here. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop recording. Okay.